And we're live from downtown Mill Bay.
Wow, such stage presence.
I know, I know.
Yeah. Look at this guy. That's intimidation.
Why are you intimidating him?
Look at like kick bricks. Don't threaten.
I really want to just when we pass a random person, I want to like
Intimidate them. I feel
Go back to this.
Yo, when Trevor gets a new kid, we're gonna side What are you talking about? I would never do such a
Laptop should be away, device should be away. I only count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 phones in there. There's more than 5 people in this class. Please put your phones away.
Mr. Neufeld.
With the knowledge that if you have your phone on you and you use it and I have to take it, then I give it to your house parents and not back to you at the end of class.
ready.
That is interesting but also distracting.
Yo, what about us, Mr. Neufeld?
We have to put it away.
No, he keeps it for a week.
And both you put those away. We're about to start.
Literally cooking up.
Oh, there we are. We are starting a new section today, part 2. This is only the first part of part 2.
Whoa.
It's going to be a little bit of background today in terms of material. We have done DNA and we've done how DNA gets transferred into protein. We now know a lot more about genes, so we can start talking about mutations, which can be simple mutations, like just a color in a pod, or a 5-legged goat. I have noticed since the invention of AI that can make pictures, the amount of mutations people post online has greatly increased. I particularly like the rooster dog. And of course, the entire mutation lineup from the Marvel Universe. Is Spider-Man a mutation?
No.
No. Why not?
He was bit by
He was bit by a spider. A mutation is something that affected your DNA before birth. He was just infected by a spider. So he's not a mutation. He knows the difference.
I'm going to sharpen my mutation.
Magneto.
Okay. These are weirdly far forward. Did you guys everybody take their desks, go back like 3 feet.
Are we intimidating
Someone rearrange the classroom. Probably. Pardon?
Are we intimidating?
No, I like room to move.
Oh,
Yeah.
he's threatening me.
I don't know why they're so
Is
far
this
forward.
intimidation?
Also, if you're way up there, I don't even know how you can see the board properly. Okay. The nature of DNA
I got stabbed.
is that, of course, it changes over time. That is the entire usefulness of it as life. As soon as we had self-replicating molecules in the primordial ooze, evolution started to occur as the replication was not with 100% fidelity. Sometimes it had a mutation. And if it has a mutation, that means it has the ability to adapt. Also, in the last 15 years, we've made a lot of discoveries about the primordial ooze. Something we didn't know at the time when that was first mentioned as where life began. Found a lot of the environment of Earth is actually not very conducive to having organic material develop without life. And so the early Earth had a very different atmosphere and a very different areas. So how could life begin in small aqueous ponds if there's no organic matter of any kind accumulating that could become self-replicating? And it turns out it is made in space. You can find on asteroids organic material embedded in the rock. On the outside of the rock, the UV rays from the sun, and the material in carbon makes all sorts of compounds, and those would accumulate if there is already nothing living to eat it. And so actually it probably did start forming on Earth, and then whenever we had something that's self-replicating start, we don't know what it was. Looking at our DNA code, we know that there's some fingerprints in there. We know that if you have a codon, often the third letter doesn't matter, so the original code might have only had 2 letters. And the original one might have been RNA, not DNA. DNA is a very stable version of RNA. But before that, biochemistry doesn't leave fossils. So there's a lot of research just trying to duplicate it. That's quite exciting that's going on right now that they've discovered what kind of compounds get made in space and could accumulate, and they're getting a little closer. Because evolution is just an algorithm. It takes the changes and applies a selection process to it. Anything that doesn't produce more children gets eliminated because it doesn't have children. It's a very ruthless process. More species are extinct than are alive. Persistent changes in DNA passed to a new generation is called a mutation. Sir, Julian.
So what is this picture at the bottom? What's wolf?
Oh, I'll get to the picture at the bottom after. You're leaping ahead, although you just
Yeah.
reminded me I need to quickly do attendance. So, block C. You can say present or here when I call you. Anders,
Here.
Caden,
Present.
definitely say. Darren, Esther,
Yeah.
Hillary, Jennifer, Jojo, Julian Chen,
Present.
Julian Gigi,
Here.
Liam,
Here.
Lucas,
Sorry.
Mirhat, Mick, Oliver, Pablo, Riley, Vienna. Yeah, we're all here. This is a red letter day. Also, if I ask you to repeat yourself, and especially if I ask you to please be quiet,
Oh yeah.
it's because I have a cold. I'm in about 4.5 weeks worth.
Oh no.
And not that you need to know this, but when I was a tiny child, I got multiple ear infections.
Oh.
No, we don't need sound effects.
Okay.
And finally, a doctor looked at it more closely and said, "Oh, we're going to put canals into your ears because your ear canals are so small. We're going to put in artificial ones. That's why you have so many ear infections. It's easy to block up." And I went, "Screw that," and I didn't.
Oh.
I probably should have. Anyway, I have heavy scarring on the inside of my ears, and they're really tiny. Which, when I don't have a cold, it doesn't make any difference. But when I have a cold, they swell up, and I get deaf, and I literally can't hear half the things that are going on. I just hear, and that's really annoying.
You should have taken the day off.
No, because if I took the day off, I would have had some small benefit. But all of you would have been greatly hurt
I would have been.
by the lack of Science 10 class, and I couldn't do that to my homies. So, mutations can be small or large from a single base. To whole chromosomal changes. Anders, you're not leaving already, are you? What? No? Yeah, go ahead. You were just there. Like, you just complained. Anyway. I'm going to ask someone for the start codon. So if you want to get out your data table, that would be a useful thing to have out. We have a volunteer, but I said randomly. I'm going to pick at random. So I'm going to ask someone at random, like Darren. So who do I pick? Oh, Darren. What is the 3-letter codon that means the start? You can get out your data table. Everybody else, get out your data table. I'm going to ask a few more. And while you do that, I get to have a sip of my coffee. Because nothing beats a cold like caffeine.
Yeah.
Always good drive.
I had coffee today, so good.
So good. So very back table, you have the circular or square table. One of them is start. So we're going to start off with the start one here. And I'm going to need 2 more. AUG, nicely done. I need 1 more, your favorite one, Liam. But it can't be a stop one. Another codon, please. UCU. UCU.
Ha.
Yeah.
No.
Sorry.
Hillary? Yep. UAC. I'm not going to answer that question because I don't know. It's a useful illustration of the point. If you don't write it because you understand it, that's fine. If you do write it and you needed it later, and you didn't write it, you will be sad. Mick, what amino acid is coded for by AUG? Yep. tiny. And I'll give you this one too. This is the one you're going to get in the future. So that one might be useful. You don't need one. No, you don't need one. Yeah, that's fine. Liam, you want one? Oh, you have one. I don't have enough for everybody to buy. You can.
I don't have any.
If you have the square version, where is the first letter? Where do you look?
On the left side.
Right. And then where's the second letter?
On the top.
There. Just do it and cross in. Yes. Do you not have any at all?
No.
Oh, if you have none at all,
I'll give you mine.
come up and grab one
No, I haven't.
from there.
Lucas, could you pass me one?
No. UCU, Enders.
I'll answer it for him.
Nope. Julian Chen.
Okay, well, I need
Literally asked you next. You said you were ready.
What is it?
UCU.
U?
UCU.
SER is Surrey.
Surrey. Yeah. SER. Excellent. And UAC, please. Zach.
TYR.
Tyrosine. Yeah. So if we do a point mutation, let's say I change that U to a C, and it's now CCU. Julian GG. What would CCU code for? Back page, very back.
Last page.
There you go.
Do you know how to read it?
UCU?
Yep, inside out.
CC.
Wait, it's like this.
CCU.
I don't know how to use this thing.
Inside out. You were actually doing it.
C?
Yeah, it's UCU.
Yeah, and what is that?
P-R-O? And you look for it here.
Or just say pro.
Yeah, bro.
Pro.
Good job, buddy.
Excellent. That's pro. That's pretty good. Let's see if you picked the right one. I'm going to try and see if I can make sure the example works. Oh yeah, you did pick the right one. Whoever picked UCU, that was very clever. Because let's say you change, I'm going to take it back to UCU. So let's go back to there. Our original, and we changed that one. Point mutation there, change it proline. Point mutation here, it's now not UCU, but UCA. UCA, Riley.
Just stop.
Pardon?
It's stop.
Oh,
Right?
UCA is stop?
Oh, my bad. It's SER.
Yeah, it's also serine. Did it change? No. So that's known as that's a silent mutation. It made no difference in the last one because the code is often only 2. And so that is a single point mutation. If you make a mutation up here, you might change a whole amino acid. Now, actual peptides have hundreds, at least dozens of amino acids. So it may or may not make a difference. One of the things we haven't talked about, but I showed you the program, is that there's protein folding. And it's going to make a difference. It's going to be because it folds it in a different way. And so it might make an effect. But this is all a single base change. And here's where you can get some evolution. It might actually work better slightly or differently in a way that's useful. However, if you have a chromosomal change, let's do that in yellow. A chromosomal change would be to snip off the end of the chromosome and delete it entirely. And those are almost always bad because now you just don't have the gene. Sometimes if you have a duplicate, you'll have more genes. That also can be bad because now things are going to work on improper signaling, but at least you have them all. That's a little bit better. In most organisms, the rate of mutation is low. Right down here since I used up so much room. But steady. You can fix mutations, but we still accumulate them over time. There's about 30 mutations per human. I used to say 3, and I think I still do when I'm not thinking about it, if I've told you this earlier in the year. And that was the old number they thought. You have about 30 mutations that are different from your parents. Most of them were probably in junk areas of DNA.
So how does a mutation form? Is it just like time?
Time, accident.
So it just like happens
Yeah.
like one day?
So that process that we did of DNA duplicating, where we just copied the letters,
Yeah.
you can imagine, like you're literally you might copy something by mistake. Literally, the actual process itself can make a mistake. One of the reasons that UV light, for example, is damaging in your skin is because it can affect that process of DNA duplication. It can actually damage the DNA, so when that cell duplicates, it's now more likely to be cancerous.
So that's why people get skin cancer.
That's why people get skin cancer. This is UV light is particularly bad because it doesn't pass through you. So all of it is absorbed by your skin, and that can increase your rate of cancer. If you're exposed to X-rays, not all of it gets absorbed in your skin, but it is higher energy than UV, and so it can do more damage, and it can pass through you. So it can still do damage on your skin, but like on an organ inside of you. And so those two factors, whether you absorb it all or how much energy it has and how far it goes, are the danger sources for that type of DNA. This is why your cell phone can't give you cancer, which I do later on a topic. Your cell phone does not have enough energy to break bonds in your DNA. You could sleep on your cell phone. You might give yourself a skin rash or a heat burn. The batteries could explode. That's happened on occasion. But you're not going to give yourself cancer. The most it does is microwaves. Microwaves are incredibly low energy. You could open and you could disable the safety on a microwave, start it up and stick your head in it, and you won't get cancer. You'll boil your brain and die anyway, but at least it won't be from cancer, which is important. Yeah. So this is the ultimate source for change, as it's the only method to create information. Also, I should mention, and I didn't mention it to the other class. Stop waving at Sujay. One of the topics we're going to do after this is evolution. I'm going to relate mutation to evolution all the time. And I know that there are some people who don't believe in evolution for a variety of reasons, often religious. If you want to ask me questions about that and how it relates, number one, I don't care if you don't. You do have to know the information and how it works from a scientific perspective, because that's just the course. But if you want to ask questions about it and how it put together, I'm open to doing that. And I can explain how I saw things and how it might fit in that. Because when I was your age, I did not believe in evolution. I believed that the world was created in 2,000 years. There was an actual global flood, because that's what I was taught. And I had to change my mind later when I took some science. I didn't think I was an idiot back then, and I don't think I'm an idiot right now, although I do have my moments. So it's not a matter of whether you know things or not for people who go, well, how could you not believe that? Well, the things you're taught and the things that you grow up thinking sometimes have to be worked through if you have some questions about it and how it relates. Also, and if you think, no, I don't believe it, I'm not going to, I know it's not true, that's absolutely fine, I don't care. You do have to pass the test, so you have to know the information on an intellectual level. Only you do not have to accept it deep into your heart as a true thing. That's only if you join my cult. Okay. This is the source for change. And we might think that evolution happens fairly slowly, and it does on a generational level. We don't notice it because we just look at our parents and we go, well, they look a lot like us. And they look at their parents and they go, well, it looks a lot like us. But it doesn't take that many generations back and you start to see slow change. When the pyramids were being built, woolly mammoths still walked the earth, and some Neanderthals were still around. Evolution has been going on for a fairly long time. Us as humans have been around since, well, it depends on who you believe, but 100, 150,000 years, maybe longer. We did get rid of the Neanderthals, it turns out, not by out-competing them, it looks like, but we discovered that a lot of people, especially in Northern Europe, have a lot of Neanderthal DNA, so we probably just sexed them to death.
Wow.
As in, we met them and said, how you doing? And then had children, and then we all became the same species. And so they were a separate branch that then got reabsorbed in these rapidly reproducing Homo sapiens, because we tended to have large amounts of children, 7, 8, 6, 12, whereas they had like 2, 3. They had replacement and slightly more. Neanderthals' body morphology is built for cold weather and are fairly hardy in terms of their musculature, and we were fast-moving clothes and bred like crazy, like locusts. Yeah?
Didn't like everything like get started with like single-celled organisms? That
No.
evolved?
I mean, it can't. A cell is an incredibly complex piece of machinery. You learned about organelles last year. The mitochondria is the...
Powerhouse of the cell.
So either you've learned that as a meme online, or you have learned last year, hopefully. And a single cell itself needs to be evolved.
I mean, I saw it on TikTok, so.
Well, yeah. I mean, on TikTok, I saw how they solved the Jack the Ripper murder, and that was wrong
Those
too.
are so funny.
I saw that.
Yeah, it's not true. It's going around right now. It's not true. They haven't solved the murder. Really questionable DNA analysis process is not an evidence make. However, what was your question again?
Me?
Yeah.
One cell.
One cell. So a cell is a complex piece of machinery. A eukaryotic cell, for example, contains other cells in it, like mitochondria.
Yeah.
So go back to a prokaryotic cell. That is a cell without proper
Bacteria.
organelles. So it has DNA but no nucleus, for example.
Is that like bacteria?
Yeah, but it still has an envelope that can contain everything from the inside. How did it evolve the envelope? Our best guess right now is something like RNA was able to duplicate itself without an envelope. So it would get resources from around it and duplicate itself, much like a virus does. And then like a virus, eventually it turns out that if you have enough phospholipids in a layer, like organic material building up, which may have occurred, then little cellular-like structures will be produced. So if you have something like RNA that can make protein products in any possible fashion, then you have a way to making those things and making your own cells. How that works, they don't leave fossils. So unlike all of our other evolution for the large, gross meaning big, not in disgusting, stuff, just we don't know. So there's some really interesting work being people trying to duplicate the process and showing how that could happen. But literally we'd only be able to show it by duplicating it. And it took a very long time for life to go from cells to multicellulars and everything. So that process took a long time. So there was a lot of evolution that happened that we
But
don't
it
know.
started as a single cell, right?
So the answer is no, it probably did not. That is the end product of another long area of chemical evolution.
So it's
There and
different
there.
light to me.
Is it likely that life in the form of RNA cropped up a few times and then basically all went extinct and repeated a few times?
Again, it's theorized, but again, if it went extinct and there's no fossils, we would never know. So it's one of those questions like it could have. I mean, all of Earth was completely destroyed. So life could have began and then been completely wiped out when the proto-moon was formed and we were smacked. Any life evolving at that time would have been, they're really excited. They have found some way that some very simple single-celled organisms can leave fossils. They're looking at rock layers from before the time that life evolved to see if life evolved before the moon thing happened. Because that would give us clues about if life evolves more than once, what characteristics are needed for that. So it can answer a lot of really important questions. However, again, it doesn't leave fossils very often. We need bones for that, and all we have is like faint impressions where we go, we think that's a fossil. Yep.
Who would win in a fight?
Okay,
Homo
no,
sapien
no,
or a-
no.
Actually,
it's a
good question.
genuine question.
Actually, a
Okay.
good question.
I,
I think this.
who would be like stronger
In
in a fight? Like
Homo sapien or what?
Homo sapien or Neanderthal?
Yeah.
Neanderthal.
Yeah, they're bigger.
Why did they go out of
They got
business?
sex.
They didn't. Not to put too fine a point of it, and you don't have to answer, but where is your family background? Like, if you go back generations, where?
Finish.
You probably have some Neanderthal DNA. So the answer is you are a Neanderthal. in some way. The more Northern Europeanish you are, the more likely you are to have amounts of Neanderthal DNA. The more you head east and get into the areas of the world that we refer to as Asia, the less likely you're to have Neanderthal DNA. So it did accumulate in, and it has varying amounts. So there and then there.
What are your
No idea. I mean, it's just a general statement of Eastern Europe. Not Eastern, Northern Europe. And you would have to get tested to try and figure that out. They have found Neanderthal bones. As I said, Neanderthals were still living when woolly mammoths were around. And woolly mammoths were walking the planet when they were building the pyramids. I mean, Cleopatra had people employed as Egyptologists to study the ancient Egyptians by studying the pyramids when she was in power. Egypt and those things have been around for a very long time. Civilization has been there. They were around so long that they were studying ancient versions of themselves. Humanity's been around a while. We don't. If you want to know how much Neanderthal DNA you have, I think there's actually some companies that can do that for you. I'm going to move on now. I can't do all the questions,
Wait,
so
I
you
have
have
to
to do this.
answer mine first.
Julian, okay, yours hand has been up for a while.
What's the moon thing?
When we were smacked by a planet and then it ejected some mass and we made the moon. Earth at one point was hit by another planetoid of a significant mass that became part of Earth. If you study the geology on the moon, it is Earth-like, not extraterrestrial.
So can we
and
go
there's-
to the moon?
Pardon?
So the moon's like similar to Earth?
Yeah. Earth, another body, smack down, and then chunk gets ejected.
And it makes the moon?
Eventually, that becomes the moon floating around. Yeah. And this body is smaller than the body that hit us.
Shouldn't there be like a big hole in the earth thing?
No, because it turned it all molten and then recooled. Like it destroyed.
That's
the
the Gulf
planet.
of Mexico.
If we get hit by that, we are toast.
Ooh.
Yeah.
What if we go? What if we go underground?
It's all those movies.
Molten. Molten
It's
planet.
the Earth is over.
Molten.
Those are fired and stuff.
Oh,
Molten.
What if we just all go under space station?
Okay, yeah,
It's
possible.
not about the actual impact.
Okay.
It does cloud
And, in previous classes, we were discussing chromosomes. People were like, how can you survive without one? Not always well, but that doesn't mean that you don't have any genes, because you still have the gene that's giving some, but it can cause a variety of conditions. This is Wolff-Hirschhorn syndrome. If you were born with this, it's because there was a mistake in meiosis, I believe. Let me double check that on here. But you often wouldn't know just by looking at someone. It does have a very distinct facial characteristics. Your eyes are a little bit bigger than normal, which if your eyes are just bigger than normal, as someone thought in the other class, doesn't mean you automatically have that. It's just a phenotype that does come around from this. You can have it for other particular reasons. Your cranial growth is less, and you do suffer from a variety of intellectual disabilities. You're more likely to have congenital heart disease, and there's all sorts of things that go along with that because you're lacking another copy of a bunch of genes, and that ends up causing a variety of problems. It can survive. It's usually not pleasant for the organism. It would be great if we could just give this person another piece of that chromosome in the future. Maybe that's something that we could do, but we'd have to do it to every single one of their cells, every single one, to actually cure that condition. So it'd be easiest to do when it's still a developing egg. Yes?
Is that what CRISPR does?
CRISPR edits individual genes. CRISPR could not recreate an entire chromosome. So unfortunately for there. Now, this is also an opportunity I take to say, just because you have intellectual disability and large eyes does not necessarily mean. I'm going to be discussing genetics and evolution and mutation a lot, and that can tend to instill a sense of inevitability with nature. If these are your genes, that's what you're going to have. But there's all sorts of things in the environment that can do that. Sometimes children have been misdiagnosed and have suffered from a different condition. Let's go for images so I can get some of the same. What? No, that's silly. A particular. There we go. Having slightly larger eyes, intellectual difficulties is also something called fetal alcohol syndrome. And that is not something that is in your genetics at all. That is something to do with your environment. This is why we now say, the old science teacher that was the head of the science department before when I first arrived here, she remembered she was prescribed Guinness, a pint of Guinness a night to take while pregnant to help put on weight because they were worried the baby wasn't growing fast enough. So she was drinking alcohol every night. Her children turned out fine. They don't have fetal alcohol syndrome. They're fine. It's a bit, if you have a drink and you didn't know you were pregnant, it might turn out okay. You don't know, because any particular moment of development might be the moment, or it might be fine. It depends on what's being built at that time. But essentially it comes down to that is affecting a growing, essentially you're 3D printing a baby. So if you get the mechanism drunk, it's not going to 3D print it that well. Imagine you're building a house and you throw a party while it's being built. All the contractors come in, they drink too, they have a great time. Toilets are built on their side, the bedroom's upside down with the bed bolted to the ceiling because they thought that would be hilarious. And the next morning they go, oh my God, we have stairs that actually don't go anywhere. The entire third floor is inaccessible, like it's built now. Can't fix it. Whereas if you build the house first, so you have an adult and they drink, you knocked over the chandelier, you may have broken a hole, and now you have to replace the toilet because it caused a minor flood. But you might be able to heal from that. But you can't heal what was previously built broken. So it's really difficult to undo. And this is why they say never drink while you're pregnant. Now, that being said, if someone is drinking while they're pregnant, it also may not do anything. You just don't know. You don't know what stage the contract workers are at when they're building it. When I have a personal friend, she was having difficulty not difficulty, she was meeting with her teachers a lot. Her child was having a lot of difficulty in school. Diagnosed ADHD at the time, temper problems, very, very angry all the time, had difficulty relating to others. And then when I looked closer at pictures of the child, I was like, oh, because I had studied this in biochemistry, and once you get to know the look, it's almost unmistakable. You can see that her child had fetal alcohol syndrome. When she became pregnant in university, I knew what she was doing. She was going out every night and having fun, as university students do, but she did not know that she was pregnant and her child has fetal alcohol syndrome. Did I tell her? No, because absolutely nothing you can do at that point. The child's getting all the help they can. They're getting to special programs in school. They're getting extra support in school to help. They're getting therapy for their anger management problems. So she had resources and ability to help, and their child's going to be fine, and it looked like it was fairly mild. But the more it happens. Now, it took us a while to find that. It does, now where evolution takes over, if you again come from Northern or Eastern European stock, and you drink while pregnant, you're actually less likely to have children that have fetal alcohol syndrome. Not zero, so please don't test that theory. However, it turns out people have been drinking while pregnant in those areas of the world for a long time, long enough to develop some protections. Other areas of the world, not so much, and it depends on your particular family background, and there is no guarantee, so don't take a chance. But this is entirely environmental, not much to do with genetics, and can be misdiagnosed as the other one. So don't forget, yes, you can have a genetic condition that has you not grow an arm, but your arm can also be chopped off. Now, point mutation. Deleting a bunch of genes may not be very good for the organism, but a point mutation might be great. Can we point to any, like most mutations you get cancer. Oh yeah, not good. However, this point mutation was identified. It's a natural occurring mutated variant of the apolipoprotein A1 found in human HDL. There's HDL and LDL, high-density lipoprotein and low-density lipoprotein, and they're implicated in cardiovascular disease and heart attacks. If you have this particular variant, you are so much less likely to die of a heart attack and to get cardiovascular disease. You can eat fast food for your entire life, and you're probably going to be okay. Well, for that anyway. So if you have that, that is really good for you. Now, it turns out, is it always good? If you're going through multiple periods of starvation, it actually might interfere with your ability to pull the maximum amount of energy out of stored fat cells. But if you live in a country in which you have plentiful fast food and you always can afford it, that's a very minor concern. Whereas the fact you're going to live longer to see more of your grandchildren and great-grandchildren is probably a higher concern. So this particular one, I'm looking forward to the day that CRISPR can give that to me. I will have all the good genes. And then I will spread all my genes to everybody else through my mutated CRISPR virus. Yeah. So, point mutation, good. Chromosomal 1, bad. Next up, mutation quality. Oh, yes?
Will CRISPR be completely unable to help anyone who isn't a single-celled organism?
No, because a virus can invade multiple cells.
Is that what CRISPR is?
Yeah, they use a viral mechanism and they give you lots of it. So you can make lots of it and then infuse the patient with it. And it doesn't have to change every cell, just a lot of them. For something like sickle cell anemia, which they want to cure with it, you only have to change the bone marrow cells, right? So you don't have to worry about all. You just need a mechanism to get it there. Put it in the blood; it will give everywhere. Give it an attachment, an antibody-like thing, so it attaches to the right type of marrow cells, and now you have a delivery system. Julian and Anderson, I'm about to move you apart because you're massaging each other's necks, and I don't know what's going on. But it's definitely distracting.
Like a tumor.
You can have the tumor later. No, it's nice. Okay, neutral mutations. We already saw one neutral mutation that we did right here, which went from serine to serine, because we changed the third one. But there's other types where you see a change, but it's still neutral because it doesn't have much of an effect. It has no effect. In evolution, what we mean by effect is not that it didn't make a difference, but that the difference didn't matter. What is the thing that matters to evolution? Yeah?
Do you die? Can you reproduce? Essentially.
Not the first one, second one. Reproduce. It's happy if you die, as long as you're reproduced. In fact, if there was a mutation that would cause you to die at 13, but for some bizarre reason you had 47 babies by then, that gene would spread so fast. Because you had 47 babies. They're going to all have 47 babies and die at 13. And that's how you get different effects. If something costs you your life but allows you to have more children, evolution thinks that's good. We don't even know if this, where is it? I just got rid of it. The one with the lipoprotein thing. Where is it? Did I get rid of it entirely? If you can live longer because you don't get heart disease, why might that not be good? Say, instead of dying in your 60s, you're dying in your 90s. Why might not that spread as a positive variant? Yeah.
Because from like your 60s and 90s, you can't reproduce anyways.
You're not reproducing. In fact, why might it be bad? You've answered one, you've answered one, with someone else. Or someone at random. Jojo? Jennifer. Why might surviving until your 80s be bad? Not for you, but for the children. Oh, some people are even slicking lower into their seats. You have to tell Jennifer.
Is it because
They take up
you have resources that could be used towards or feed children?
Like, what do you want from your parents? Right now, like, what do you want? What? What do you want? What do you want from your parents? Money. You want money. You phone them up. You're like, I'm out of money. Fill out my subway card. I'll put more money in my bank account. Pay off my visa. I want some money. They die. Right now, you get all their money. If they survive longer, you don't get your inheritance. In fact, you might get it so late it doesn't make a difference on your reproduction. So evolution has a vested interest in taking out the parent generation early enough to allow the young to thrive.
Aren't people starting to live longer though?
They are. Better healthcare, better everything else. But that's completely independent of evolution. It might be that doesn't work well for evolution, but right now we're at the point where we can edit our own genes, and we're saying, suck it, evolution, we're doing what we want. Now, it also could be good. Why could living longer be helpful to the children? Anders.
You can care for them more.
You can care for them. I know many couples who, if it wasn't for the grandparents being able to take care of the children while they're at work, would not be able to work and provide for their family. And so having people around who can take care of the family is actually incredibly useful. So it depends on what the selection pressure is. If everybody's selfish and doesn't help each other, then having old people, not very useful. If everybody's a community and pulling together, then having lots of people around, useful. Yes?
When like we're 80, like the students are like 80 or 90, what do you think the life expectancy will be?
No idea. The theoretical maximums is somewhere around 120 because your chromosomes get snipped as you get older, and it slowly eats into them, so you get what's essentially old age disease.
What if you get more chromosomes?
Pardon? You can't get more chromosomes. You have 46, and they're being eaten from the end.
Well, you can swap them out.
The things that repair those ends also give cancer. So right now, when you're saying like, where do you think we'll be? We don't have a mechanism to fix that yet.
I feel like we
So.
can live until like 300.
Yeah. Sci-fi.
People die of old age.
Yeah, but
It's really hard to get past 120.
I have a question.
Okay, well, no, I need to move on because otherwise I'll get your question in a moment when we have another moment to take some. A change may occur in junk DNA. This is DNA that's never translated or never read into protein. So it never gets through transcription and translation, so it never makes a gene. And if it never makes a gene, you have a mutation there, well, who cares? I put junk in quotes because we're now finding out there is some regulatory tension in there. So it might do something, but most of it does not.
Never is translated.
What do you say? May not harm the cell, but it may not harm the protein. Take the easiest one.
So a change that's never read, never translated into protein, may not harm the organism ever at all. Put away the computer. Yes, you had a question from
What
before.
about, you know, like the people who freeze themselves,
Freeze themselves?
like to live longer?
Oh, yes.
Does
yes.
that do anything?
You mean the people who have destroyed every single cell in their body to the point that they will never be able to be resurrected? Those people?
So is that a bad thing?
Oh, yeah.
Will they not be able to wake up?
No.
How do you know that?
What does ice do in water?
Freezes.
No, it's already frozen if it's
It
ice.
makes-
the cells.
What?
Makes it cold.
It melts.
There's a
You have a pond
What?
with ice in it.
Yes.
Where's the ice?
And the top.
On the top. It floats. Why does it float?
Because it's
Of density.
Less than.
Because of density. So ice is more dense or less dense than water?
well,
Less dense. It floats.
well,
That means if you freeze a centimeter of water, is the ice cube bigger or less than a centimeter?
bigger.
Then why
bigger.
do people do it?
So when you freeze yourself, all the water expands and breaks every single one of your cells. You are now mush.
Frozen.
There's
Why do all those billionaires
There's-
do it?
that's going to be so hard to fix, and who's going to pay for that?
They have bread.
They
They make a lot of
don't.
money.
You have taken something that like there's no particular way to preserve it, but that is like the worst possible way. It looks fine, so people are fooled because you look at it and you go, oh well, I can see all their features. But yeah, that thaws. That is toast. Yes.
What if you put like a thin plastic bag around yourself so the water actually didn't expand into your skin?
No. When water freezes, it expands. It's just a law.
Inside your body.
Yeah, inside your cells. Do they do things like they'll do fancy things like pump out your blood and pump in another fluid that doesn't? And they'll do stuff to mitigate it. They can't take out the water of all of your cells. All your cells are toast.
So all the people who are doing it right now are dead, basically.
Well, by definition, you're not allowed to murder people. You have to die first before they'll do it.
But you're allowed to
So
do
you
it.
already have all the damage from whatever happened before you died. Then you have destroyed every single one of your cells. So you've added to the damage. So why do people do it? Because people say things like, well, there's still a chance. And people are suckers for chances. That's why lotteries exist.
I saw this guy on the internet. He's like trying to live to 200 or something. And
Yep.
He's doing all of these.
Oh, I know what you're talking
I
about.
know what you're talking about.
I know
Like
what you're talking about.
he wants to be young forever.
Yeah.
Or something. And I don't know if it's working, but he's doing all these things to his body.
The single most effective way to get people to spend their money is say something in healthcare will help you live longer.
No, but
So most of things just turns out a lot's affected by your genetics.
He does look pretty young though.
And you will just have to wait and
You can
see.
see it on TikTok.
I mean, we did have the Liver King, and then it turned out that didn't work out so well.
no.
He was
wait.
on roids.
Yeah,
wasn't
if you were some roids, I don't think anything's involved with his health.
Yeah, but at the time he was talking, we didn't know that.
Did Liver King die?
Didn't he just take away the roids?
No, it just kind of just fell off because he said he was natty, but then we found out that he took roids.
Oh.
He's-
Gentlemen. Okay, so any mutation that does not change the function of a gene with a protein that is less or more effective is just neutral. It may not configure a particular advantage or disadvantage. It could be part of junk DNA, which it isn't affected, or it could make a change, it's just the change doesn't matter. Why do I have a bunch of pictures of noses?
Those are all different.
They are all different. Do they make a difference?
No.
Yes. Kinda.
No.
How?
Why is one of them red?
Unless they affect your ability to smell, they're just a morphological change. You might think that one type of nose is more attractive or less attractive than another type of nose, but for all the people that think that, there's probably someone else who thinks the opposite. It has no impact on an organism's ability to survive. So we also get things like genetic drift, where changes will happen that don't matter, that might just become more or less popular in a population by chance. It's an entirely neutral effect, may go away and may continue, and it explains a lot of minor fluctuations we may see. Second one. Positive mutations. Well, we saw the one about heart disease. Most of the positive mutations we talk about actually are mutations we're worried about. We don't want positive mutations. Because the most popular ones happen in bacteria. And what happens in bacteria that mutates them, that gives them an advantage? You get an infection, what type of bacteria do you worry about? What do you normally take if you have bacteria as a medicine?
Antibiotic resistant.
Antibiotic resistance is the problem. So, antibiotic resistance is the bacteria evolving against our medicine. It allows them to survive. This is why it is incredibly important that you take your medicine as directed. Yep.
You know those anti-vaccine people? Are they just stupid?
I would say, just like I said earlier, for people who believe in different things, no. It first started with vaccines because a researcher said that the vaccines were linked to autism. First of all, why would you say that autism was worse than death, even if it was true? That seems bad. And second of all, the researcher, it turns out, lied. He faked his results and everything's there. However, who are the people who believe it? How many of you have a mom or a dad who is extremely protective and will make sure that nothing harms you? And if you're not putting up your hand, I feel very sad for you. And when they hear vaccines might cause autism, what they hear is something I do may harm my child. So I am not going to do that thing. Yeah, they might get measles, but I'm going to make sure they don't get measles. It is harder for people to take an action that might harm somebody and understand the relative risk there. So I don't blame the moms and dads that believed it. I blame the media system that promoted it. And we're still finding the amount of distrust today for vaccines is really hampering our ability. We have measles outbreaks now, which is insane. We shouldn't have, measles have been cured by vaccines for ages. 1 second. I'm not done my rant. If you have the flu, you will on average give that flu, you will give it to 1.2 to 1.5 people, which means you give it to someone else, you pass it on, and occasionally someone extra. And we know how rapidly flus spread. Even with that little extra, flu spreads through the school fairly quickly. The equivalent measles is that if each person with measles gives it on average in an unvaccinated population to 12 to 18 people. It spreads like that. This is why it's so difficult to get rid of measles entirely, like we did with smallpox. Nobody has smallpox anymore because we vaccinated pretty much, literally, everybody in the world, and the disease just died out. Now we don't even have to worry about it anymore. With measles, the vaccination rates would have to be much higher, given how infectious it is, and given the amount of people who don't like vaccines, that's right now would be an impossible task. Jojo.
Is that the last word we say antibiotics?
Antibiotic resistance.
No, the one above.
Antibiotics.
That looks like an
Right there. Antibiotics. Uh-huh. So, if you are taking, I have the diagram here. If you were taking antibiotics, how often do you normally take the pill? What do they assign?
Twice a day.
Twice a day. Sometimes 4 times a day. It depends on the antibiotic. It depends on how quickly your kidneys get rid of it. So you take a dose. Let's say this is the dose required to kill the bacteria in its infection. So you've never taken it before. You take the dose. Now, it would be better if you took it more often, because then you could keep this swing, but then you don't take it, and then it starts to dip down here, and then you take another dose. And then it swings down, and you take another dose. And you just keep doing that. You're keeping the amount needed to kill the bacteria really high, and slowly the bacteria dies. Let's say instead, you forget a dose, and it goes down here. And then you remember, and you take it again. Remember, the amount needed to kill it is here, but then you forget again and it always goes down. This level, the bacteria doesn't die, but there's still antibiotic around. What it's doing is, when it's up here, it kills all of them. When it's down here, it kills some of them, the weak ones. And then when it's down here, the strong ones that are left that had a little bit of resistance multiply. And then you take it again, but they get to multiply through here, kill off a few of the weak ones, and you go through another process. You keep doing that, and you're breeding antibiotic-resistant bacteria. So if you take it, if you forget once, okay. But if you keep forgetting, you can build antibiotic-resistant bacteria in your own body. And it doesn't even matter if it's the bacteria you care about, like the one you're killing off. Your own bacteria can develop antibiotic resistance, the stuff you naturally have in your gut and on your body, and then they can trade that information to other bacteria through another process. So we want to be very careful when we're taking antibiotics. We only take it for bacteria, not viruses. Viruses are killed by vaccines, not by antibiotics. And we want to make sure that we're taking it as prescribed so we kill them all. Otherwise, you end up with a multi-week antibiotic-resistant staph infection that eats your face off. Yep.
So going back to the autism thing.
Yep.
Is it even possible to get autism later in life, or do you have to be born with it?
It often appears in childhood in various degrees. Some people are now being diagnosed later in life. They had it the whole time, but what we used to call autism, the reason this whole thing came about is because we used to have a diagnosis for autism that we would now recognize as a fairly extreme form of autism. Now we recognize it as a spectrum, and there's various levels that you can have. And the point at which it appears is very close to the point where people usually have their first vaccinations. So often what happens is your child has gotten their first vaccinations, and then a month later, 6 months later, you realize your child has autism because they're building blocks a little too accurately. Like they don't talk to the other children, they've stopped being really playful with them, and they're making very rigid, very exact structures out of Lego. And you're like, that's a little odd. And then you take them to the doctor, and the doctor goes, oh yeah, it's totally autism. And then you start talking. And you go, wait a minute, I heard that vaccine caused autism. They had vaccines 6 months ago, that must have caused it. So it's a mistaken cause. Oftentimes if something comes before and then something else happens, we just assume it's the cause. It's not always the case. If I take a pill and my headache goes away, did the pill cause the headache to go away?
No.
Maybe. You actually have no idea. We'd have to do it to 1,000 people and show it was repeatable. If I sneeze and 10 minutes later there's an earthquake in Chile, did my sneeze cause the earthquake in Chile?
Maybe
Yeah, don't sneeze, Mr.
pretty
McGraw.
strong there.
So is it possible, so if I'm not autistic,
Yeah.
is it possible for me to become autistic?
I don't know. I do know that there are some viral infections that can cause changes in brain behavior and ability to think. One of those is long COVID. Post-COVID, lots of people are reporting more difficulty concentrating. There's been increases of diagnosis post-COVID of things like ADD and ADHD in adults. It seems to have affected how their ability to function. So is there, I'm not saying there isn't, but I haven't heard of one. Yep.
You know alcohol syndrome causes autism?
Pardon?
You know alcohol syndrome causes autism?
No, it's considered its own thing because we know where it came from. We actually don't know where autism specifically comes from. It does seem to have a genetic component, but not 100%. So it's not like it doesn't form like exact recessive dominant traits when you look at how it's passed, but it's definitely linked. So we're not entirely sure, but it would be different. Okay. Bacteria survive. That being said, if you find a paper that says it does, I'm immediately wrong because that's my guess based on what I know, and I'm not an expert at either. I just don't think they are. DNA deletion, I mentioned this one before, so here's a positive one. If you have the CCR5 variant, so let's say that you are, this is the dominant trait, that's the regular one. Lowercase r is the recessive trait. If you're homozygotes, what would you have?
Same.
Which one? Yep. So if you have the recessive trait and they're the same, you are completely immune to HIV. It does turn out that having that particular mutation does increase your risk of like getting the flu slightly. So it's not 100%, like it's actually not necessarily good. But the variant wasn't completely harmful. It's existed in the human population. And when HIV came along, it actually protected you against HIV 100%. And if you are heterozygous for it, so you have capital lowercase, it at least delays AIDS as well. HIV, from my childhood in the 80s, we were incredibly worried about it. Once they discovered where it hides, is not a very particularly strong virus. It's weak and pathetic. It dies in the air in seconds. You literally pretty much have to directly give moist fluids to someone in order to get it. So sex or blood transfusions or dental work or something of that nature. And the reason why it works is this is a T cell. This is part of your immune system. And it hides inside the immune system. It'd be the equivalent if someone wanted to invade your house. But instead of invading your house, they took over the police. Then you call the police to say someone's invading your house, they show up and take over your house. Really hard to get rid of, and that's what HIV did. What this mutation does is it changes the door, and HIV can't get in. It does make it more easy for some flus to get in and do stuff,
Wait,
but
so
that was acceptable.
That little pink thing.
Yeah?
Wait, so HIV is the big green thing, right?
Yeah.
And you said
And your cell is the big blue thing.
Oh. Wait, what's the door that stops it? The little pink thing?
Yeah. So this is the CCR5 drive, I believe, is right here, and it interferes with that mechanism of whether or not it allows it in.
Wait, is the like pink, not the pink, like the red long thing?
This
is
thing?
that
Yeah.
part of the green?
Yeah, that's part of the door mechanism to get it in and out.
Wait, so is that part of your cell or is it part
This
of?
is part of your cell.
Okay.
That is the HIV cell.
And that's
And this is your immune cell.
okay.
Yeah. And of course, we found antibiotics itself by a happy accident when some bread mold blew into culture samples and by mistake, and they noticed that all the bacteria around it died. And so they said, this is useful, and they invented the first antibiotic. And at the time, bacteria didn't have a resistance to it. So penicillin was literally a wonder drug. In the olden days, before antibiotics, if you got an infection, you either got better or you died. There's nothing else anybody could do. You just kept it clean and you just hoped your body would get it. You can imagine having an earache and there's no antibiotics. It just gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And then we invented antibiotics. You just took some and it all died. That was huge. But bacteria reproduce incredibly rapidly, have a mutation rate, and then also quickly evolved to combat it. Yes?
So I have a book that shows you how to make penicillin. Could we make it?
Maybe. Bring me the book. I'll see how hard it is. We've been doing a lot of theory. It's 11:33. You have a 5-minute break.
Oh wow.
Thank you.
Get up at the very least and stretch your legs.
I'm gonna go.
Wait, when does this block start?
Pardon?
We get out of this one at 45, correct?
No, 55. 55?
I thought it would be 45.
I didn't think so.
Are you on duty
Maybe.
today?
You would
I am not.
What
Okay.
day? are-
Pardon?
What day are you on duty?
Oh, it is 45. I should have given you this break like half an hour ago.
Oh,
It's okay.
Oh, we have time for an announcement at the end.
We learned a lot.
okay. I'm gonna go fill up my notes.
Yeah, but it's a lot of lecture for without a break.
Noof. Noofadoot. Noofy doofy. It's goofy.
Mr. Newfeld,
Yeah.
what's the longest you've ever taken someone's phone for?
Forever?
Didn't you take?
Because I still have them.
Really?
They graduated and didn't bother to pick it up.
I guess that must have.
Mr. Newfeld,
Yes.
if I got my phone taken away,
Yeah.
could I just buy a new phone? And
Yeah.
would that one get taken away too? Or
Yeah.
like, would that
I think
kind
that
of?
Well, let's say, for example, not to mention any names, but you go home for Christmas and you get a new phone, and then you come back with your old phone, you put the old phone in, then you use your new phone. And then people notice, because you're always late to class, and you still answer texts when your phone is in it, and then we just find out in the new phone. Or, if you're just always late to class, but you're very clever and you don't answer texts, we just ask IT. Do they have a new device in the network? And then they can look and they can go, oh yeah, they do.
Where
And
do
then
you
we-
use your data?
If you just use your data, then you're being very stealthy and you never know.
Too much work though.
Yeah, it's a lot of, it's a lot of work. And really, why do we take your phones at night?
You don't go to breakfast.
Pardon?
You don't go to
You
breakfast.
don't go to
I went
breakfast.
to breakfast today.
People were not getting enough sleep. The amount of students who were exhausted the next day was high.
10:15 last night.
And it started in Privet House because of the grade 9s.
Lorenzo.
No,
Perfect grade 9s.
of like
Okay.
5 years ago. One, they woke
Crying.
Miss Walensky up because he was like, my life is over. Because somebody took a photo of someone else's backup to their backup Instagram account. So it's not their regular Instagram account. And it wasn't their other Instagram account where you just have like your close friends. It was the other Instagram account where you gossip about your close friends. So like 3 levels deep, and they took a picture of it and posted it online, and it has his conversation on it, and didn't reflect on him very well. He's like, all the grade 9s now hate me, and there's this thing, and like every grade 9 across the school was up gossip. You could just see the messages on Instagram just going
They gotta keep
crazy.
their phones.
And he didn't get any sleep. Ms. Walensky didn't get any sleep. He didn't wake me up, so I got sleep. But the next morning, Ms. Walensky was like, and then the next morning he went to class and was like, oh, it's not a big deal. It was just a thing that happened at night because everybody was online and it was easily spread, and everybody wakes up to all the dinging of their phones and starts piling on. But once they all met in person, it went away. So in Privet House we said, grade 9s now have to always hand in their phone. And grade 10s, because they're also juniors. And we did that. Privet House is the only house that did that, because we weren't putting up with that nonsense. And then Mr. Sullivan looked at that and went, you know what? That's a good idea. Let's include the grade 11s and do it for the entire school. So, you're welcome.
Thanks, Noof. Thanks, Noof. Want to hear other people?
But, notice, we don't take it away during prep. It's not for academic.
We do.
It's for mental health. Pardon?
All the
Does
Does
it?
Yeah.
Way to go, Mac House. You're actually doing prep for once.
No, I
Well
still
done.
end up just grinding on my PC.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, it's like all
Like the phones
I
are
play.
not.
Before-
I game every night.
before phones and laptops,
Really, Jojo.
children
Yes, give me.
still found ways to be distracted. So at the end of the day, it is you recognizing, I need to not be distracted.
Is Charlie gonna eat on this?
Oh, it's time. 5 minutes. Please get your work back out.
I
And
want
now we're
to
going to
spin
talk
up,
about later in the week.
Hey,
First-
already out.
What is happening this Thursday or Friday?
You see how my work is actually written
Oh
out?
my god, Noof gave me a sticker.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, this is the question. What's happening? Put away your phones.
Kindness
Oh,
week.
so it's CrossFit.
What's happening this Thursday or Friday?
I know
So-
a scary one.
Yeah. Nope, in this class.
Kindness week.
Nope.
Test.
We have a quiz every Thursday or Friday.
Is it
What
like
will it be on?
So what we're gonna be on Friday?
A worksheet. Which worksheet? That worksheet. Well done.
Wait, what worksheet? Blood worksheet.
Not the blood worksheet. Which one that's older that we haven't done yet?
genetic cross.
The genetics one. And this quiz will be a little different.
Wait, which one?
Wait, which one?
Oh, I already did that one.
Tell me.
So answers will be posted.
Which one? I'm so old.
That's yours. I gave you yours. Didn't I?
I stole one from
What's this one?
Okay.
Wait, you didn't
And
know?
a lot of these questions are immediately asking the thing that I just told you. So please move on. This quiz is going to be structured slightly differently for genetics. It's going to have at least 3, possible more questions, but you only have to do one of them. It is going to have an extending question, a profession question, and a developing question. I don't think I'd put an emerging question on there, because what would that be? I know genetics exists. You can choose which one you do. Gentlemen, Julian, Chad, Drew. So what it will be is the extending question would probably be something like, I don't know, maybe something you haven't seen before, a dihybrid cross with co-dominant or incomplete dominant traits. Maybe it will be just a regular dominant recessive traits, but I'll give you a trihybrid cross and you will just figure it out from scratch. Ask for all of the parts from there.
Why did we get a sticker?
I just put one on your desk.
Yeah, no, but why?
Shh. You didn't put up your hand? You don't ask questions? You don't call out? No questions at the moment. Lucas? The proficient question will have a question similar to one we've done before. It could be blood typing, It could be a regular dominant recessive. It could be codominance. It will have a question to show you proficiency. A developing would probably be an easier version of that. So you have a chance to show it on something if you're having difficulty. You can bring your worksheet to class. Answers goes tomorrow. What is happening the week after? You are having your biology test on all of the biology we have done so far. It will. That particular test, you will not bring your worksheets to. You will have a test. It'll be on all of the biology we've done: DNA structure, protein synthesis, genetics, maybe some of this. We'll see. And that will be on all of that material. I posted it as, I think, the cross-grade biology examination of some kind. It's either Thursday or Friday, depending on which day we have class. I think I posted it for Thursday for all classes, because I couldn't remember which classes had it on Friday. But that's next week. So start making your study notes for those. And you will have that summative from all of these formatives. Okay, questions now about either the quiz or the test. Is it about the quiz or the test?
It is. You know the study thing, credit.
Pardon?
You know like the study things, we can study.
I do. Every weekend I'm on duty. Anybody can come get extra help. Yeah.
Can
Yeah.
we hit
Yeah.
that little prep night?
Yeah.
Not really.
Sunday or Saturday afternoon?
The
Tutorials
weekend.
here? I'm often lonely in tutorial.
Tutorial's so boring.
Any other questions?
When's the quiz?
Pardon?
When's the quiz?
So when's the quiz?
Thursday or Friday?
This Thursday or Friday.
Friday.
And then the test is next week.
Wait, why Thursday or Friday?
I just don't remember which day we have the quiz. Today is Monday, so we're probably going to have it Thursday, I'm guessing. Right? As well, I'm almost done marking your labs. You'll get them back with a feedback sheet. However, if for some reason I found in the other class someone they took their lab book out of the lab, there should be, all the lab books should be in this room. If you know you have your lab book, you should get that to me ASAP, because I want it to be done everybody. I'm actually on the last half of this class, and then I'm done all 3 classes. So if for some reason you have your lab book, I should have that, and make sure you get that to me. Okay. We have,
Time to go.
what? No, we have 2 minutes.
Come on, Andrew.
Yeah.
There's 2 minutes left in class. 2 minutes left to learn.
Yeah.
Back up.
Last one is negative mutations. That was a long break because I also did announcements. Mutations that affect a lot of genes. So a chromosomal deletion is almost certainly going to be a negative mutation. That reduces an organism's ability to reproduce successfully, harms the function of a, what are we always talking about? Gene. I should write it in blue. By creating a less effective protein. And then you get organisms with a disadvantage. Now, this may be eliminated by evolution. It may be that it's not enough of a disadvantage to be eliminated. There is this thing in social Darwinism, and social Darwinism isn't a real thing in terms of evolution. But people think, well, because evolution gets rid of bad things, then we should get rid of those things. The more genetic variation a population has, the more successful that population is. So it's not quite there, but I'll finish it on that. Give them the bell.
Have you ever hit that, Mr. Newfeld?
If
Pardon?
the bell doesn't